This is episode 2, Painting and Photo Recipes That Give You the Art Advantage. And this is the author Roslynn Eve of The Art Advantage. You can buy a copy on Amazon.com or Amazon.ca is the easiest place to find it. Now, we're leaving off last time with this image, and we're starting up exactly where we left off. And you'll notice we make all the changes to the left image. Okay, so I want to just get back into the conversation that we were having there with light to dark. Now, they call it grayscale because it's all grays, there's no color here. And I call it light to dark because we have the full range. Now let's put our dots on there, and we'll go with the black one first. So you can see that it's black because it disappears in the black. Now notice as we move it forward, and this is a smaller amount. If it was a huge dot, well then it's taking up so much space that it's not going to be considered precious. It's because it's a small amount that it's more noticeable. Okay, so notice that as we move it towards the light end, which is again the opposite, I call it extreme of dark, extreme of light is white and black. Okay, so notice how visible it is and how it pops out, and wow, like you really notice it when you put it in its opposite end. But even in here, even if you don't go all the way to white, you're still noticing it quite a bit. Okay, let's do the same with the white dot here. Notice that when we start it is white, see? And notice as we move it along, how the darker it gets, the more noticeable it gets. See, it's less noticeable. See how it gets more noticeable? And then by the time we hit even in here, even not all the way to dark, it's like popping out like crazy here, you know? Okay. Now, let's just even, for more reference, let's look at your light gray. Look at light gray dot here, and let's see which one. You see it's the third one in there. So that's where it disappears. So it's a little bit noticeable in the light because it's not pure white. But again, notice how visible it becomes as it goes towards the opposite end. So isn't that amazing? Okay, now let's do middle gray. So we're actually in the middle range, what I call middle range or neutrals. Okay, so you see where it disappears there? That's the one that it is. Okay, so as you move to the light, it becomes more visible and looks more dark. It makes it appear to be more dark. And as we move to the dark, it appears to be more light. So anyway, that's an interesting effect as well. But middle gray, that you would have to have your image be extreme. You'd have to have the image being these extreme lights and these extreme darks with no middle in there to make your middle gray more visible, which people don't normally do. Usually they have, and the best type of, for noticing light to dark as a main area of interest, it's the best result is to have your middle grays here, which would be in this range, and then also the rest of the painting, or most of the rest of the painting, either in your light all the way to light or in your all the way to dark. So you're going to have the majority in, let's say, this range, and then you have a little bit of white. Well, then it's going to really stand out against it, and vice versa. If your image is all light and into the neutral middle range there, as soon as you put a tiny bit or some black or darker shade here in there, it's going to really pop. Now, also keep in mind, if you have very neutral, like tan colors, gray colors, and all that sort of thing, that adding red, which is now a color, is going to really be visible too, because your image is otherwise quite colorless. So it doesn't matter whether you're putting it here or it looks lighter there, and of course it looks darker there, but it doesn't matter where you're putting it, you're noticing that red because it's a color. And you're going to say, well, just a minute, Roz. That is red. I mean, it's intense. It's, that's why you're noticing it. Not really, okay, because let's prove that theory. And here is a middle shade of blue, because look at, okay, you see it's at its most neutral there. Notice how it gets darker as we go to the light and how it gets lighter as we go to the dark. So it is a middle shade of blue-green. And you notice it regardless. See, you're noticing that color quite a bit. Okay, even though it's blue, you're still noticing it quite a bit. You don't have the intensity of the red, but it still works with color. Now, just to show you, here is the color grid. Let's get rid of this one. And you notice we're getting the same kind of thing going on here, right? Let's move the dark one down here. See, it doesn't matter whether it's a color, you still have the range all the way from white all the way to dark. You still have the range that we're working with. Okay. So I think we've covered those points. And let's just get rid of all this here. Going back to the Mona Lisa. So this is why what we were doing before is so effective in controlling where your view is and where your area of interest is, where you want to look. Now, I want to talk for a moment about competing categories. We know that the Mona Lisa is known for her smile. So we're just going to throw the grid up here. Now, when we talk about the thirds rule, and we will be getting into that in the Mona Lisa, or in the Whistler's Mother tutorials here, but this is a grid, and it's called the rule of thirds when you divide your image into 3 this way, and you divide your image into 3 this way. So you end up with 9 sections, all pretty well equal, or supposed to be equal. Okay, so you notice that what is on the third line, and this category is called, I call it containment. You want to contain your areas of interest within the image, because when they get too close to the edge, then it is not as interesting, it's not as strong of an area of interest, and it can nullify it. It can also be detrimental to your image if your main ingredient is too close to the edge, because then your eyes following it all the way to the edge, and you decide, oh, I don't want to look anymore, and you just keep going. Well, we want to keep the viewer wanting to view, so we want to keep the areas of interest more in the main area so that they don't lose interest. So what I'm saying here is, what is the third line? So this is again another category. So we go, if we're looking at the light to dark category, then this is where you're going to look. If you're looking at the rule of thirds, which is, this is the rule of thirds, and what is on the line? What is on these lines? Because that's going to be the most exciting place to put your main area of interest. And especially if you put it on or really close to, you see, anywhere really close to those lines and where they cross. So what is close? Well, as for the rule of thirds, yes, the lips are very close to and will tend to draw attention. But the white is competing with that. So now you've got 2 categories. One is saying you should look here, and one is saying you should look here. Do you get what I'm saying? That's what I mean by competing. So now one has to be more dominant so that you can control where the main area of interest actually is. So what we did is, if I took out the makeup, see, if I take out the makeup, well, now it really is more the lips, isn't it? However, this is a little bit competing. So if we take out the white, that part, yeah, oops, there we go. Let's get rid of the lip white too. Okay, and the face jewelry. Now we'll put in the white, just the white lips. Now this is what I mean. Now we're supporting that this is supposed to be the main area of interest, because we're putting the lightest point and mixing it with the third line ingredient. So now we are making that the main area of interest. Now remember how we talked about in the last one about putting makeup on her and how the eyes have become the main area of interest. The eyes are, and it is overwhelming your desire to look at the third line because of the white, because it's a competing area of interest and not located ideally for this category, the third line category. Okay, so I want you to keep this in mind, and it goes for the details and everything too. If you look here, you've got 3 categories together, so it's going to tend to be overwhelming in this area. This is going to become the main area of interest because we've got the lightest area being here. You've got your color, your most intense color being right in this zone. So this whole area now becomes the main area of interest. This becomes another area of interest. And this becomes an area of interest. So you've got 3 areas of interest, with this one being the main one because it's the most dominant, and that's why it's the most dominant. Okay? Okay, so I think I've made my points that I wanted to make with this tutorial. So I'm going to bring up my book, which I've shown you before. It's The Art Advantage. I'm Roslynn Eve, and you can get it on Amazon.com or Amazon.ca. There is a link in the description for this tutorial, and you can use that if you would like. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope that you found this to be likable, and if you would like to subscribe, of course you can. Okay, thank you. Bye for now.